There we go. There's the obligatory Zoom lady robot voice. Thank you for joining me, Stefan, all the way from halfway across the world. My name is Brady. I'm from the Inner Strength Check podcast, home of all things hobbies, arts, riffs, and mental health. So, Stefan, meine Deutsch ist scheiß, but wie geht's?
Äh, Absolut wunderschön. Ah, no, lovely to hear. Where did you learn German?
Oh, I just dabbled a little bit with it in lockdown. So, yeah, for everyone else listening in English, how are things going over there for you at the moment?
So far, it's a quite busy end of the year, to be honest. We're looking into releasing a new record with Obscura. We just released a live record with my other band, Vulcandra, and there are probably 120 shows next year, starting early January. So things are
Wow.
busy, but better busy than bored, you know?
Yeah,
So couldn't be better.
you seem to be a man who likes to keep himself busy, Stefan. I mean, I've just had a bit of a look through just in terms of your touring schedule, and it turns out that in your time you've had 800 shows or something thereabouts all up. If the press release is to be believed, that's quite a feat. And you mentioned that you're looking at 20 shows, and I'm guessing that's on top of all the things confirmed for 2025 for Obscura too.
Yes, I love playing live, and
Yeah.
it's a certain lifestyle as well that comes along.
Hmm.
And a couple of years ago, when we really started to do like proper international tours, so let's say around 2009, I made the decision for myself to, well, like it and go for that full time. And
Hmm.
after many years, I still love it. I mean,
Hmm.
the sun doesn't shine every day, to be honest, but
Yeah.
usually when when you come home after tour and you think about everything you've seen and you've achieved during that time, it's just something great to look after. And especially
Hmm.
you can travel. I'm not from a wealthy family, so just thinking about traveling to North America, Latin America, Asia, or even Australia or New Zealand is absolutely ridiculous. So
Hmm.
therefore, it's grateful. I don't take anything for granted, and therefore there are so many more places to visit. Like I never played in Hawaii or Alaska or I don't know, many
I
many
would
other spots.
love to see that. I would love to. Maybe you can make it ultra brutal and play, I don't know, in a volcano or something.
We actually did a video shoot on a volcano, but
Yeah.
that's a difference.
I think a gig's a little bit harder to manage, but yeah. So walk me through that a bit. So you had a point in time around 2009 where you decided, I actually want to make this, incorporate this. I love it, and I want to actually incorporate into my life as a musician more full time. Was there a certain kind of event or thing around that time that really swayed your decision? Anything that influenced you to just kind of go for it and jump into international touring?
Mm, I think that was more like a step by step decision.
Yeah.
So there was not that one breaking point because
Mm.
when we started, of course, we haven't reached that level or status we achieved right now. So I'm talking about band tours for many years and the rough way, you know,
Mm.
the school of the streets, so to say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
still, I really enjoyed it because you met so many cool people, and we slept in so many floors of venues. Or in North America, it's kind of a tradition that you just sleep at someone's house after the
Mm.
show, and
Mm.
I felt really welcome. And you somehow also understand different cultures a little bit better that way, and
Mm.
therefore I was simply appealed by that entire thing. And while being a student, I had a lot of time, or I just missed course.
Yeah.
I barely went to university, so I'd rather stick around somewhere. I don't know, lurking around the corner, playing more shows. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was just growing into this entire thing. But to be honest, it was not a wrong decision. In hindsight, I wouldn't do anything else. It's
Mm. Mm.
on the other hand, I mean, what is the alternative? In
Mm.
my life, I had many different jobs from everything you can imagine, and the worst but best paid was an office job. So
Mm,
I also I've seen the other side. But
mm,
if you just put everything in balance, I wouldn't miss touring and this lifestyle we are in right
mm.
now and we are talking.
Mm. And you guys have had a really sort of a lot of people sometimes fandom falls into two camps. Some people are more back with the Omnivium sort of era, and but things have really picked up post Diluvian and a Valediction, which you've also mentioned in interviews. You've written a lot of material whilst touring. How do you find kind of have you found the sort of the recent I feel like Obscura has gone from a known but not kind of, I guess, mainstream death metal institution, but Diluvium is where I sort of, Sermon of Seven Sons, Diluvium, that era is where things really started to pick up for you guys. What was it like getting that kind of sudden, I guess, wave of extra attention as a band after all those years?
Mm, it's really hard to answer. It's a very good question, to be honest.
Mm,
And if I think about it, um, we always have been one of those bands that never had a real hype. We
mm,
always worked step by step,
mm,
and one tour after another came across, and but also the same with albums. So every album that came after another was a little bit more successful than the previous one. And
mm,
of course, there are a lot of people out there um, who cross or came across our band and our name when we signed the first time with an international label with Relapse back in the days and
mm,
the album Cosmogenesis that went out. But
mm,
if you think about it, we would have never reached that part without all the European tours we did before or the national tours when we started. So it's like building a house piece by piece by piece. And
mm,
with the two albums you mentioned, Diluvium or A Valediction, we just felt much more comfortable because there's also some kind of experience you gain with every production. Doesn't matter if it's a studio or a studio production or live show, live tours. Um, there at some point we just reached that level that we have been able to focus much more on music than before. And to
mm,
me personally, it was around 2019-20
mm,
when I didn't need any other job anymore than only focusing on Obscura. So that was the era when I, if you call it that way, became a full-time musician and I only had to work for my two bands. And of course, when you have more time, there's more focus and there's more output and you have much more freedom to consider what you're going to do as next step. And
mm,
therefore, that was one of the few steps that made a difference, but it was not like a breaking point to me.
mm, mm. And thinking about sort of the recent trajectory of Obscura, you're probably sick to death of this question, but it's the elephant in the room, really. There's been a few lineup changes over the past few years. What's helped you kind of consolidate and keep things moving forward in adjusting to having those lineup changes as an original band member? What's sort of helped, I guess, helped Obscura stay intact with those lineup changes through the band members.
Um, to be honest, it's quite a mutual respect
Mm,
because on the one hand, I understand that not everybody wants to wants to live in this lifestyle.
mm,
Um, think about you're leaving your home for like 6 up to 8 months a year,
mm,
and we reached an age where we are in our late 30s, beginning of 40s. That's the time when families come across, or you really question yourself if you rather have a stable job or a stable income or something like that. So I absolutely understand
mm.
and respect any musician who says, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I cannot do another 100 shows a year or more.
Yeah.
I cannot leave home. I have other commitments or other jobs. It's
Mm,
just impossible." And
mm,
that's totally fine. On the other hand, Obscura always have been an extremely consistent band. If you just lean back, you see we are looking into our seventh full-length record now, and for
mm,
every album we toured, I don't know, the world.
Mm.
I mean, not for distribution. That was only a couple of European tours, but starting with Cosmogenesis in 2009, with every album we played a world tour, and I'm absolutely, I totally understand if it's a little bit too much, or sometimes also musicians underestimate the work that is coming with being on the road or with um, joining a band of that size. It's not only
Mm.
the hour you play on stage; it's also everything around. And
Mm.
sometimes reality can be quite hard. So
Mm. Mm.
1,000 reasons. People come, people go, but Obscura always stays. I think that
Mm.
route out.
And do you feel that it's quite easier from a more, I guess, audience or public facing perspective to be like, what's going on with all those lineup changes? And unless you've been regularly touring and kind of grinding, so to speak, because it can be, as you mentioned, like it's a fair grind. There's a lot of, I mean, you've even mentioned yourself, lots of punk rock DIY style, lots of effort, lots of things to manage, and you've got to balance that up against your own kind of life stages. Do you feel like sometimes that's not factored in when people hear about lineup changes and that sort of thing, that maybe they're not aware of the kind of the extra work that goes behind the scenes behind that show?
I think most people are not aware of what it is being in a band like that size.
Mm,
But it's
mm,
totally fine. I mean, we are musicians,
mm,
and I'm happy if there are people out there who really likes the band, listens to the albums, maybe visit one of the shows, and
mm,
recommends it to their friends. That's totally fine.
mm,
You don't have to know everything that
mm,
is happening behind the scenes. And that's
mm,
also the reason why we don't go public with everything, because
mm,
it's something between the band members. And if someone has an issue in his life, of course, we are not sharing that publicly, but just
yeah.
out of respect of everyone.
Mm,
And of course, if you see a lot of lineup changes, there are always a couple of keyboard warriors who interpret whatever into it. And I've been reading a million bizarre stories about myself. So it's
yeah.
totally fine. But there's also the reason with success comes a lot of negativity along.
Mm,
So
mm,
gentleness at times. And
mm,
I'm fine with it. I just ignore it. If
mm,
you ask any support band that has been on tour with us, or anyone who really joined us on the long run, knows that
mm,
we have a very healthy and friendly environment. And
mm,
our aim is to make people enjoying what they are doing. And it doesn't matter if you're the first band on the bill, or playing in the headliner, or you're part of the crew. The same with studio productions. We try to maintain a fun and easy environment. But
mm.
again, sometimes people underestimate the work that comes along.
And I think I've seen you guys live twice now, which is nowhere near enough times for me, as a bit of a super fan. But I noticed that you guys played Into the Fall, and I think I saw you guys at Corner maybe 2018, 2019. And the both
Mhm.
what I really liked about your show is you guys were grinning, smiling. I felt like I was at a hardcore show because you're just trying to G everyone up. Everyone's having a great time. There was a real sense of fun that kind of goes against that very stoic, we're singing about cosmic entities and it's tech death and it has to be brutal and serious. I just get this sense that from your live show anyway, that at least in that context, you guys in the band are generally having fun, and it's great to see from an audience point of view.
Oh, thank you very much. That's really nice to hear. Because on stage, of course, you want to have fun. You're not there to play a clinic or
Mm,
make everything as perfect as possible. It's more about the energy. So
mm.
of course you have to deliver the best you can, but on the other hand, it's a live show. So come
Yeah.
on, yeah, we need more rock and roll in tech there. I think that's a
And
nice quote.
And I think that's quite interesting when you look at the subject matter of Obscura, because it's quite macro scale. It's a lot of very esoteric, cosmic content. And I think people can maybe misconstrue, okay, we're going to go see a death metal band singing about stuff in space. It's going to be all serious, but it's a big, fun, happy time. But on the lyrical and writing end of things, my best guess of what your upcoming album title, A Sonication. It's about sound waves moving particles and matter. What's the draw for you lyrically with the current album and just in general? What's kind of kept you tethered to that I guess that grand space theme as part of your writing?
That started a long, 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 long time ago when we actually started really writing lyrics for Retribution back in the days.
Mm,
So we had the intention, and we still have, just to write about things that matter to us and we are interested in. So we don't
mm,
try to build up a facade or
mm,
fancy words or
mm,
I don't know, going down the religious way like black metal bands do, or
mm.
um, talking about slashing corpses. I mean, there are bands like Cannibal Corpse
Yeah,
who do this better.
yeah.
And I was just interested in all those different topics. So
Mm,
philosophy, astrophysics, at times a little bit of religion, and
mm,
we merged it somehow into some kind of aesthetics as well.
mm,
So if you look at the photos, photography, the artworks, and the
mm,
lyrics, and to me everything has to align. And somehow,
mm,
after a couple of records, I found my own way. And as you
mm.
figured, I'm not a native speaker with a slight German accent. So after some years,
Kleiner.
I felt
Yeah.
ein kleines bisschen. I found it a little bit easier to express myself,
Mm,
especially
mm,
when it comes to the lyrics. I think there was a small point where we changed direction. No, I wouldn't call it changing direction. It's more about the devil in the detail.
mm,
When a valediction came along, so we started a new trilogy,
mm,
and with that one, everything should become slightly more human, more organic, um,
mm,
leave more room to breath. Um, Also from the perspective of the music, lyrics alike, everything should gain a little bit more human touch, and
mm,
therefore I try to dismantle a little bit from all
mm,
the cosmic universes,
mm,
um, to slightly more um, personal values I try
mm,
to implement into that entire thing. And songs
mm.
like on the new album, I think Stardust or the title track of Sonication,
Yeah.
there swings a certain uh, introverted vibe, let's call it melancholy, along. And this is something we haven't had on the previous records. So
Mm,
definitely something new. But when
mm,
it comes to the albums itself, a Valediction dealt with a lot of farewells in different variations,
mm,
while a Sonication is more like the reflective one, and therefore maybe swings along this melancholic, laid back, uh, fatalistic vibe, if you want to call it like that.
mm,
So
mm.
it's a
And
long
I,
way from
mm,
where we started, but to where we are right now, I'm quite happy how
mm,
it ended up, because there's a certain pattern and a certain way the lyrics are built up that fit just well to the music, and
mm,
still there are some rhymes and the the outlines of what we did in the past. So
mm,
I'm a quite optimistic person. I always try to pick the diamonds of both worlds, and
mm,
the lyrics are just part of that.
mm. And I get the sense of that too. I've been cheeky and lucky enough as a music journalist to have a bit of a sneak peek of the album, and I do think that lyrically, even musically, it does have that. I do get that sense that it's gone from a more expansive, nebulous feel down to a more sort of personal tone, and it works well. So yeah, I'm just teasing everyone else who doesn't get to listen to it till February, but what about music itself? I mean, I've noticed you've there's been a lot of consistency, there's a lot of fluidity. What are your main musical draws and the bands at present with your songwriting? Is there anything in particular, or is it similar to your lyrics where you're just kind of branching out?
When it comes to music right now, bands I'm listening to are Mastodon, Unto Others,
Mm,
Tribulation, a
mm,
lot of bands that have a less hectic output, or
mm,
a less hectic music. So I simply love if a musician or an artist or band in that case have a certain authentic and original signature sound, and that's
Mm,
something I try to maintain with Obscura. We never
mm,
changed direction. Of course, we didn't want to repeat the same album and release the same thing again and again, but the core of the music always maintained to be death metal.
mm,
But on top of that, I always try to get a couple of more ideas, influences, and broaden the palette of everything. For the new
mm,
record, for example, I shifted from a very precise production from a valediction into more the idea of getting a wall of sound with 1,000
mm,
different layers. So all
mm,
the guitars, for example, they did quadrupled at times. We didn't only double them, but we also played four or sometimes even eight rhythm guitar lines. And then the overall idea was to main what's the English word, to generate something that's more like a depth in field, if you want to
mm,
speak like, yeah. So it's not only the stereo signal, but it's also the depth in field, how you orchestrate the positions of each um, instrument, also
mm,
in um, yeah, in depth, not only left and right. And that was really really interesting, because then all the detail work, like choirs, the space choirs, vocoders, all the synths and everything, and especially acoustic guitars that added
mm,
some more dynamics, that had so much more room. And
mm,
when it comes to songwriting, I try to become more song oriented than guitar focused. So I
mm,
reduced the the guitars or the information that comes along with all the guitar lines in favor of all other instruments. So my aim was to leave every instrument shine at some point.
mm.
We have an excellent bassist. Of course, you want to highlight him at some parts.
Oh
There's
God,
a
yeah. Yeah.
there's
Mm,
there's a world class drummer and
mm,
an excellent guitarist joining, and I want to leave all of them a certain spot to shine. But at the same
mm,
time, if you want to have some more room for a certain instrument, another part has to be reduced. So it's more like storytelling in the very end.
mm,
And that was my intention writing A Sonication, storytelling
mm,
within songwriting and production alike.
mm. Sounds challenging, man. You've got the Devon Townsend school of wall of sound production, lots of multi-tracking, and also trying to, I guess, inject a bit of fairness in terms of giving everyone sonic room. Do you find that like quite difficult to do at times in writing, or do you find that like advances in, say, technology, that sort of thing, are helping in that sense with
Mm,
production?
to be honest, I'm always hungry to see and hear new things. And
Mm,
working with a producer who has seen everything on this planet, like Freddie Nordstrom at Studio Fredman, that helped a lot.
yeah.
So trying not to overproduce things. I tend to make everything too perfect, but
Mm,
working with he showed me a couple of ways how not to do it, and I'm very glad if you not only think about the technical aspect but also the performance, that the album sounds a little bit more authentic than
mm,
previous, because we
mm.
didn't uh, polish it to the max, we didn't overproduce it, and
Mm,
therefore with every album you learn something new, and
mm.
that's really cool. I don't want to just stay on a certain level. I want to explore much more, and there's so much more still on the list I would love to do in the future, and there's much more music coming, believe me.
Awesome. Well, I'm very glad to hear that as a super fan. And speaking of you guys coming, I think that there's whispers about you potentially touring next year. I heard that may be on the cards for Australia, something that's being considered. I'm sure that's probably just my wishful thinking, and you guys have got a busy schedule, but the second that gets announced, I'll be jumping on it. So I yeah, so thank you for the chat, Stefan. It's been really interesting to kind of piece apart your process and chat to you today. And just from me, personal feedback, I'm really digging the new album and everything that you've talked about. Ladies and gentlemen, he's not talking out his ass. Like I guess my feedback ahead of time, which I'll be doing a review for, yeah, I do get that sense of lyrical and production warmth and organicness, but also it sounds massive. And I think that from me, that's really impressive to be able to refine your, it's almost like you're kind of boiling down the lyrical scope and expanding in your production. So, um, yeah, keep poking around in new sonic spaces, and we'll be following you wherever you go, especially on tour. So thank you again, Stefan, and it's been a pleasure to chat, mate.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a very nice conversation. Glad you liked the new album, and I really hope we have a little bit more time in Australia next time.
Oh,
The travels are
please.
absolutely brutal, and if you would see myself, I think I still look like having a a jet lag from 2 years ago when we passed by last time.
Well, you know what? I'll be looking equally as jet lag, but that's just because I'll be drooling watching the bassist and the rest of you guys play. So it'll be mutual.
Lovely. It was really
Awesome.
cool talking to you. Hey,
Thank you.
thank you very
Cheers,
much for
man.
having me.
Thank you,
Cheers.
mate.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye bye.